Hi Chris, thank you so much for joining us today to chat about changing careers, and I'm sure you'll be an inspiration to many. Everyone meet Chris. He started his own business and retrained from hospitality to become an IFA, and his business has been going since November and is very successful. And I just wanted to have a chat with Chris to show anybody out there that's thinking about maybe they've reached a crossroads, or they're just thinking, I'm in a job just now and it's not for me, how maybe Chris came to this decision and the transferable skills he perhaps leaned on. So, Chris, tell us firstly a little bit about what you do just now.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks very much for inviting me to speak with you, Emma. Yeah, basically, I am a financial advisor or financial planner, as I like to think of it. I basically help people who maybe don't have the time or necessarily the knowledge or the confidence, but they know they need to, there's something they need to figure out when it comes to their personal finances, if, whether it's around budgeting or they need to do a bit more when it comes to planning for the future. They realize that maybe they've been putting off sorting out their pensions or planning to buy their first home. That's where I come in, basically, to help them cut through the noise, get really
Okay.
clear on what their goals are, and then help them to put a plan in place to get towards those goals.
Perfect. And is there a stereotype of a person that comes to you? So is they a certain age, or do they do a certain kind of job? What would you say your clients tend to, what's their
I would say
what
this,
does it look like? But
yeah,
yeah, what's their circumstances?
sure. Well, I would say there's kind of two main groups that, because of my background, two main groups of clients that I've taken on since I've started my own business. I used to work in hospitality prior to doing what I do now, which I guess we'll be touching on a bit more.
Yes, yeah, that's
So yeah,
certainly.
I used to basically run bars and restaurants. I was a general manager of sites across central London. So my professional network prior to moving over to financial advice was in hospitality. That is where a lot of my initial clients came from as well. Friends, ex-colleagues, people I knew from the industry. Because with what I do, it's so important that or the people that I help know, well, first of all, know, like, and trust me, that they feel able to share some really intimate details about their lives, about their hopes and dreams, relating to family, career, things like that, and having that, you know, commonality in terms of our having worked in the same industry. I understand what it's like to work in hospitality, the challenges, the particular financial challenges around work-life balance and all that sort of stuff. So it just really helps me to be able to empathize with that.
Okay.
And in a similar vein, when I started my own business, I was looking at maybe groups, networking groups to join, and I thought, okay, well, I quite like to join groups with people like me. So I joined quite a few LGBTQ networking events because I'm a member
Okay.
of the community, and I found that there was a real, I guess, not surprise exactly, but when I was having conversations with people about what I did, they were like, oh, and the way I explained to them my process, the way that I work with my clients, they said, oh, wow, that's really refreshing. Like, I'd, you know, whenever they'd come across financial advisors before at networking events, typically it tends to be a bit of an older man who is probably not a member of the community.
Yes.
And it's having someone like you who just you feel comfortable with to share those details about your personal life, whether it's family wise, relationship status, or the particular someone who's aware of the particular financial challenges that might come with being a member of the
Yeah.
LGBT community, whether it is if you look to start a family and you're a same-sex couple, maybe you need to adopt, maybe surrogacy is an option. There are
Yeah,
different financial
absolutely.
needs, so being able to empathize with them and
Yeah.
just have that base level of like understanding and trust really helps.
Perfect, perfect. So what inspired the move then? Like what made you go, working in hospitality one day to go, do you know what? This isn't for me anymore, and it's prompted your career
Yeah.
change.
Well, hospitality was definitely something that I fell into. I studied philosophy at university.
Okay.
I studied in London. I'm from Liverpool originally, moved to London in 2011. When I graduated in 2014, I basically needed a job to pay the bills for a while whilst I was applying for graduate schemes.
Okay.
And it turns out that the part-time job in a bar was actually something that I was a lot better at than I thought. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. I had fantastic colleagues, made really good friends, had a great manager, and I was encouraged to join a graduate scheme within the business I was part of, which was the idea was it would fast track you into a general manager role. And yeah, I just kind of caught the hospitality bug, worked my way up, became a general manager. But the things I didn't mind so much about in hospitality when I was in my early 20s and I was single, so working late nights, evenings, weekends, long hours.
Yeah.
When I was getting closer to 30, those things that I hadn't minded so much when I was younger started to become a bit more of a problem, especially as I was in a relationship and with my partner working 9 to 5, not having the time together. It was a real problem for me, and also not being able to necessarily be able to spend the time with family back in Liverpool as much as I would like. That there were quite a few motivators. So they were the things that were making me consider my future within hospitality. At the same time, 2023, I was thinking about, well, I was in a position where I'd just moved to a new business. Definitely my work-life balance had got a bit better. So I was like, okay, you know what? I need to sort out my finances. It'd been something that had been at the back of my mind for a while. I've got some money in the bank, but it's not really doing anything. Let's educate myself and see what I can do better. So I started listening to a podcast by a financial advisor. And this was like the gateway for me moving into the industry here. And it was the Meaningful Money podcast made by a guy called Pete Matthews. And just the way he talked about, well, one, the kind of privileged position you're in as a financial planner, being able to, having clients share, really intimate details, like I said with you, telling you everything that matters to them, sharing their hopes, dreams, and then being able to help them make those things a reality. I just thought that was really, it just sounded like the dream job, really. And in the same time, aside from the interpersonal side of things, that the importance of building relationships, which in hospitality, the customer service, the interpersonal skills, communication skills, they were all things that were necessary. You needed to be successful in the role. So they transferred really well over to financial advice. So I thought, okay, I'd be able to. This is something I could do, but also there's kind of the behind the scenes technical stuff that obviously comes in handy. When we're putting together a plan for a client, if that involves a mixture of saving, investing, insurance products, pension planning, mortgages, things like that. There's from an intellectual perspective, it was just really engaging and challenging for me. And just made me, I was using my brain more than perhaps I had in hospitality, where after maybe some time in the industry, I got a bit complacent and thought, okay, it's just the same problems, same challenges, but nothing really new. So yeah.
Amazing. I mean, you can see there's a lot now that you've explained that there is a lot of skills, that are transferable and that are very much needed in both roles. How did you navigate then the career change? Because it's not just the simply of applying for a new job, because you've got to get some accreditations behind you. So how did you navigate that transition?
Sure. So it was in 2023. It was probably about June, July was when I was seriously looking into what the pathway would have been for me to move into financial advice. And I was just doing my research, so that basically in terms of professional qualifications, you need a level 4 qualification. And when when at first I thought about it, I thought, okay, would I need to go back to university, do a master's degree or something like that? Absolutely not. The level 4 qualification was reasonably priced. I think at the time it was like just over £1,000. So I thought, okay, fantastic. Like this is, it's not a super high barrier to entry in terms of cost. So that was the first step. And then so I was thinking about it a bit more, and I was it was in July 2023. I just said, you know what, I'd been thinking about my future within hospitality. I was like, realistically, in let's say 10 years, what sort of role do I see myself doing? If I was to stay here, and progress, maybe I'd be moving into an operations role. I'd be not working in restaurants anymore, working in multiple sites, but that would take me away from the thing that I enjoyed, which was being with, in the restaurant with people, being able to speak with the guests and with the team. I was like, okay, you know what, if there's realistically not, I don't see myself having a future within this industry. What is holding me back? Let's just take the plunge. So I basically signed up for the qualification. And then after I had enrolled, I just got in touch with my manager was on holiday at the time. So I got in touch with the the manager that was looking after my district and said, listen, I'm going to be going part-time, or rather, I won't be able to do my job anymore. My general manager role was a full-time thing, and I'll be needing at least 4 days a week is the maximum I'll be able to work.
Okay.
If there's, maybe, I don't know if there's an option for me to be able to stay with the company, I'd love to. Maybe just step down from my role. Maybe we can explore those options. And fortunately, the company I worked for was really, really supportive. They were absolutely more than happy to keep me.
Oh, that's good.
Help me, made a role for me that worked for me, worked for them. So yeah, I was really supportive. So I was very lucky, really, really
Oh,
supported by
that's
my
good.
business.
And how long did it take then to do the training element?
So it was from July 2023 to April 2024. So I
Okay.
think we're looking at about 9 months, pretty much.
So
So
quite a commitment, studying and
yeah, exactly.
working at the same time.
That's why I knew that if I'd have tried to keep, my full-time five-day week job and also have the kind of mental, it was a job where, you didn't leave your work when you didn't leave your work at the restaurant. You'd go home and there would always be something in your mind, something that you knew how to deal with. So
Yeah.
I knew that I wouldn't be able to give it my all to both the studying and my current job.
Okay.
So yeah, having that extra day to study. Well, in the end, I ended up probably having 1 day off, 2 days fully studying, and then 4 days working.
And what about, so fast forward, you have been successful in gaining your accreditation. What happened after that then? You got, you gained it. What did you do? Did you start applying for jobs, or did you decide to go self-employed straight away? How did it work?
Sure. Well, I studied for my qualification with LIBF, so
Okay.
they're the London Institute of Banking and Finance. When I was about a month away from finishing my qualification, I got in touch with I can't remember, maybe it's their like careers team, and just said to them, listen, I'm looking to obviously change industry, looking to move from hospitality into financial advice. Is there any chance I could have a conversation with someone just to explore my options in terms of what entry-level roles are there? Would I need to go into like an admin role and then work my way up? Anyway, I had a conversation with this guy, and he said, okay, you do have a few paths. Yep, you could go into an entry-level role with like, an independent firm. Maybe it'd be then a couple of years of you doing, cutting your teeth on the admin before you'll be allowed to go and work with clients. But there are also in the UK quite a few financial advisor academies because of the average age at the time, maybe to change now, of financial advisor in the UK was 57.
Wow.
So the way that the industry was looking to move in the future was that over the next, like, let's say 10 years, the majority of those 50 advisors were going to retire.
Yeah.
And that would mean that there just wouldn't be enough advisors to kind of service even the existing clients, let alone all of the people out there that don't have financial advisors. So for me, that's quite a nice position to be in, because it's an industry where basically there's a real demand for financial advisors. So like I say, there are these academies. I reached out to a few of them, went through the initial stages of the process, getting to hear about what basically the idea of the academies is. Okay, I've done my theoretical learning, I've done my professional qualification, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you'd be able to, okay, how then do you actually hold client meetings? What does the client journey look like? What are the sort of things that you need to do in those meetings? And then like the behind the scenes to make sure that you're compliant from a regulatory perspective, because there's a big regulatory burden in financial advice. So I ended up joining after looking at my options, I ended up joining the St. James's Place Financial Advisor Academy, because I thought basically the level of, I guess, training and support, not just through like the initial period, but like on an ongoing basis, was kind of the best that was on offer in the UK. So yeah, I basically I finished my qualification in April, and then in September was when I joined their Financial Advisor Academy. Perfect. Which is like a 9-month, you start with a 9-week like intensive training period to really make sure that you've kind of ready to hit the ground running in terms of knowing how to run those meetings, how to make sure that you're compliant. And then in the position where I am right now, I'm obviously advising clients, but there's a lot of ongoing training and support that is offered to, if you want to niche into specific areas of advice, the option is there.
So like what everyone always says about, you learn to pass your driving test and then you learn to drive properly afterwards. Of course, it's not the same thing, but it must be in your type of work. There's going to be different situations and different people's circumstances, so it's good to lean on your network to get their expertise as well.
Definitely.
And has there been any, you said there, you touched upon it's a very regulated industry. Has there been any kind of technical skills that you've gained while you've been there?
Definitely. I mean, in terms of obviously like to do to help my clients, there's a lot of like I say, behind the scenes work. So when we're obviously like the normal client journeys, maybe we'd have an initial meeting where I explain if they're completely new to financial advice and they don't really know what a financial advisor does, I explain what the relationship looks like between me and my clients, kind of what my promises are to them, what they can expect from me, and then also what the journey would look like between, let's say, first meeting and then coming on board. When I say coming on board, that's essentially if I provide advice to a client on one of the products or services that I can advise on, whether that's insurance or mortgage or investment or pensions. But I think it's really important because well, for clients who've never worked with a financial advisor before, they don't necessarily understand what the journey looks like. So I need to set that out up front and then go through it. But obviously, like I said, behind the scenes, that's where my technical skills come in. So in terms of being able to use things like cash flow modeling software, which is basically a fancy way of, it's basically a program that allows you to, a piece of software that allows you to like map out from someone's current financial position and then what they're doing now in terms of how much they're saving every month, how much they're investing, and then also what in conjunction with like what they're spending. You can basically map out into the future what position they might be at in, let's say, 10 years time, 20 years time.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it basically helps you to clear, like visual in an easy to understand way for the client, explain what their future might be if they either carry on doing what they do now or take a different path. But then, like I say, the technical skill is, I guess, being able to use these pieces of software.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And then probably explain it in layman's terms to people.
So a lot of this stuff is, a lot of this stuff is from a client perspective, they probably didn't even know it's happening. Like whenever I'm giving advice, there'll be like let's say a 10, 15, maybe even 20-page suitability letter that is just explaining why we're doing what we're doing.
Okay.
Sometimes they might even demonstrate, yeah, okay, it's fine. You've already explained to me, but that's where I guess all of the the technical skills come in terms of me having to explain out of all of the 1,000 options available why we've gone with this particular option. So yeah, sometimes it's not always apparent. Like clients don't really maybe understand exactly how much time and effort can go into preparing the advice and really making sure that it's the absolute right course of action for them. Because it's not a one size fits all approach. It's about understanding someone's particular circumstances and their goals, and then deciding for them what we should do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what about then, you are now self-employed. How have you adjusted from being in that employed position that, is probably, the structure's dictated just because it's an organization and everyone's, it's a set standard. How have you adjusted to now being self-employed? How does it feel? And has there been a challenge with it in any way?
If I was I can start with the challenges before I move on to the positive aspects.
Okay.
I guess the main, well, not necessarily challenge, but probably concern for anyone who is making the move from employment to either self-employment, starting up your own business, is I guess the fact that you've lost the safety net that comes with that regular, that monthly salary hitting your account, the sick pay that you had, the paid holiday that you used to enjoy. When you go self-employed, you have to provide all of that for yourself. So I basically, I knew that especially moving into my industry where I help people to plan financially, I knew that I needed to make sure that, let's say for the first 6 to 12 months, I'd be in a position where, taking an income drop from my previous industry, I'd be fine whilst I, built up my business, built up my client bank. So that was, I guess, I imagine for a lot of people, the financial concern of, okay, my pay is going to be irregular. It might not be what I used to make. That's the main one. But I mean, you just plan for that by making sure you've got that cash buffer to tide you through, because the last thing I would have wanted would be to, be a few months in and then be like, oh God, maybe I've made the wrong decision. I'm going to have to rethink,
so
go back
built
to
up that
employment.
Security
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Absolutely. But in terms of like the practicalities, I mean, when I was working in hospitality, I was running businesses. So, had a lot of autonomy and control within my business, but, who I hired, the way we, there were a lot of things I had control over, but there were a lot of things I didn't have control over as well. So, I couldn't decide my menu, for instance. I was part of a brand. So in some ways I had a lot of autonomy, but in some ways I was quite restricted as well. So I guess I already had that entrepreneurial mindset of wanting to, kind of do, knowing what I knew would work, and then kind of chafing at being restricted by my boss. So in all honesty, the move has been like, I think exactly, it was just the right one for me. Yeah, exactly. Like I guess I don't think I was not that I wasn't meant to be employed, but I mean, I'm striving now to be able to, not have to necessarily, not that I don't have to answer to anyone. I mean, I work with a practice basically with other financial advisors, so we do collaborate quite a lot. But yeah, just being able to decide, how I spend my time, who I work with, when I work with them is really, I mean, liberating and empowering.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what about is there any, because a lot of part of the job is it's not just dealing with clients, it's about advocating for you and your business and why it's, your support can really help, other people. What kind of network strategies do you have, or business development? Like, do you have to put aside networking time?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I think back to let's say last November, when I was ready to give advice, my network basically consisted of people in hospitality. So it was quite a small niche, and I knew that moving into a new industry, I would really need to broaden my horizons. So I just threw myself into it really in terms of let's take networking, whether it was in-person networking events, online networking events. At the start I was kind of just doing everything. I looking on Eventbrite, seeing what events there were, things where I would, let's say, not be a complete outsider, things that were relevant to me, whether it was young entrepreneurs or small business owners or LGBT or queer business networking events, just like events or networks where I felt that I would meet people like me who I would have a rapport with, and whether they would, potentially be clients themselves or would be businesses that may know people that could be clients, or whether there'd be opportunities for collaboration. Yeah, I mean, within financial advice, I mean, most successful businesses tend to be built on referrals, basically. So it is, it's, you do a good job, you build relationships with other, I guess, advocates, whether whether they're a business owner, whether they're a friend. Anyone can be an advocate, someone who knows what you do, knows your value, and then understands how you can help people. Them sending people to you is what a lot of successful businesses are based on. So that has been my strategy to
amazing
build those relationships myself, and use existing ones. Like I say, it's at first my thought was, okay, it's all about me building new connections, but then it probably took me a month or two to think, okay, yeah, but I've got all of these pre-existing friends and colleagues that I know really
who do
well.
they
They like me,
know?
they know and trust me. Exactly. Why am I kind of, and maybe at first I was a bit apprehensive about, oh, they're friends, so I don't want them to think that I'm kind of using them for business purpose. But then I quickly, when I said, but that was just maybe me putting blocks in my way. When I said, explained to them what I do and said, yeah, is it, would you like to help me? Yes, they would like to help me. Okay, you could help me by maybe, asking a colleague who might need some help with their finances to come and speak with me.
No, perfect. No, absolutely. And probably finally,
well,
Chris.
Also on that topic as well, just before we carry on, I mean, we are both a member of the same
yes, we are.
networking group, which I couldn't let this sort of conversation point in without bringing this up. I mean, we're both members of GRP Connections, which is a fantastic networking community. I mean, when I said that finding groups of like-minded people, I think has been so important to me within GRP Connections. The community that has been built by the founders, Gabs and Ben, is just a group of people who are, I mean, from my first, I guess, insight into the group, I just knew that these are people who it's just the energy is exactly the same energy as me, just super positive, really welcoming, and just the general mindset is, how can I help you? That's their mindset, rather than how can you help me? And I think wanting to kind of give before you expect to, rather than expecting to be given to you, is a mindset that's there. And
no, absolutely, and it's a very that's fantastic. I would say, a very supportive community, and I think you realise when you're on a self-employment journey, places like the Hub and GRP Connections, it's a very supportive place. Like, people will genuinely help each other out, and I think that's what sometimes you need as well. And the bit that you can miss necessarily work in a big organisation, but there is that support in place elsewhere. But Chris, probably for anyone that has been watching this and thinking, oh wow, Chris has done, he's been really successful with his career change. what advice would you give to somebody right now that's either sitting there at that crossroads? Perhaps they might have, their position's been made redundant and they're thinking, what's next? Or somebody is sitting in a role just now that they're not very happy doing. What would be your advice if they have been thinking about a career change?
I mean, if they're thinking about it and they've got a specific industry in mind, then just do your research. Speak with people within that industry is, I think, the absolute first port of call.
Yeah.
That was something that I actually didn't do initially, and I
Okay.
probably should have done it sooner. But I mean, it wouldn't change the trajectory I'd taken. But just speak with people, educate yourself, speak with people in the industry, read articles, read books, listen to podcasts, maybe like I did, of people who work in the industry.
Great.
I mean, the conversations, though, I think are the really important part, because then you can ask about realistic and, what are the routes to entry? What is the sort of entry level role I could expect to be in? What is the pay going to be?
Yes.
You know, if it is going to maybe be a little bit of a drop in pay to start with, is that something you're happy to take, to be in a career that you actually enjoy and thrive in, with then the opportunity for, for growth further down the line?
Okay, no, that's really great advice. And finally, Chris, tell us, anybody that's thinking about, do you know what, I've been meaning to speak to a financial planner for a while. What type of people? I mean, we covered it, touched it at the beginning, but what can you do for people? Like, Tell us a bit more.
Absolutely. Well, I think, like I said, if somebody is, like I said, they know, or they have an inkling in their minds, I do need to get a bit more serious about this. Maybe I'm just kind of, spend, get my pay in at the end of the month. I've spent everything. I'm not putting anything aside for the future, but I know I should be doing more. I'm looking to start a family. I'm looking to buy a house. I really probably should start thinking about retirement, even though I'm only 30 now. Who knows if the state pension's still going to be there in 30 years.
Yeah.
For those people who know that they need to be doing something, but maybe, like, say,
Okay.
time is a barrier, or it's just like, oh God, I've done a Google search and I don't even know where to start because there's so many options. Just reach out and have a conversation with, not necessarily me, but with most financial advisors. It's not, you don't, like, for initial conversation or meeting, there's no charge. Um, the way the client journey looks is that, I mean, to start with, I need to see if I can help you first of all. It might well be that we'd have a few meetings, and it might be that, I present some recommendations, but you decide not to take them, you go on your way. And typically then there's no a charge associated with it. Just reach out and have a conversation. Like I was saying with moving industries, just speaking with someone can be a lot more insightful than doing 30 hours of online research.
Absolutely.
Because when they can really just, use their knowledge and experience and focusing on you and your position, you're just going to get more value out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Chris, for your insight today, and really love your energy. And yeah, it just goes to show that somebody out there has made a successful transition. And it might not necessarily, you can see that the skills are there, that cross skill there too. So thank you for your time. I'm sure it's been a real inspiration to a lot of people. So thank you so much.
That's okay. Thanks very much for inviting me,
Okay,
Emma.
have a good day. Speak
You
soon.
too.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.